Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. I hope everyone's having a great weekend. So today we're going to be discussing some of the water droughts and some of the issues that we're seeing with that. So for those who don't know what a water drought is, basically what it is where you're not getting a lot of rain, and when you do not get the rain, your rivers are having a hard time replenishing themselves. Your crops are suffering, so you're going to have a lot of crop loss and things like that as well. You're going to have a lot of really dry situations where you're going to end up having wildfires like we see out west all the time. So I think most of us have heard about some of the water deals that California was trying to broker to try and get water brought out west. It sounds like most of that has fallen through. But understand, this water drought issue is not just here in America. It's not just to a few states. This is continually getting worse. So here's some of our articles that we've found in conjunction to the water droughts around the world, and a lot of official pages like UN.org and things like that that have been monitoring this stuff for the last couple of decades, and we've actually seen 30% increases in droughts just within the past few years. So something most people don't realize about a drought is whenever you're having these droughts, your soil is becoming so dry that it begins to crumble. It's losing a lot of its structural integrity and things like that, especially in areas that are overlogged pretty heavy. There's not a lot of root structure there, or not a lot of healthy root structure. And when you get these saturating rains from our hurricane seasons or the tropical storm seasons and stuff like you get on the West Coast as well, you're going to start noticing that when it comes in, it dumps a lot of rain, that what happens is you cause a lot of mudslides. So a lot of people in South Texas right now, there's a storm moving into that area, and they're saying it should give them a lot of much needed rain. But it is so dry down there, I'm expecting to see different news articles coming out about flash floods or even the dreaded mudslides that we get. So we haven't had any mudslides here in Florida, but that is a real issue out in the West Coast between that and the wildfires, because these wildfires come in, they burn everything out, and then it rains real heavy and it causes mudslides. So what can you do to prepare? Well, one, when we talk about getting food, if you live in an area where you're prone to having mudslides and things like that, you don't want to always keep all of your preparation in one spot. And the reason for that is if a mudslide comes in and takes out your home, then you're kind of screwed. So what are some things you can look at? Well, they do have different types of storage facilities and stuff that are actually climate controlled. So that's something you could look in, but you're looking at added expense. Maybe it's taking it to a friend's house, neighbor's house or something, or just going up into a park area and stashing your food. That's going to be up to you to determine how the best way to do that is. Now, I know down here in Florida, we're looking at a, well, they said active hurricane season, but we've not really had a lot of storms in this area. We have had really good rain, which helps us when it does come into storm season, which we're approaching, because middle of August, even though hurricane season already began months ago, it's middle of August to the end of August when we see our biggest storms develop that actually impact our area. So we're looking at tropical storms, we're looking at hurricanes and things like that. But I'm hoping this year's not going to be real bad for that. That's not what they're predicting, so we're just going to have to wait and see. That is one of the problems with living in the Gulf Coast, guys, is when you live along the Gulf of Mexico, you're looking at some massive storms. Even on the Atlantic side, there's a lot of big storms that can come through. It seems like for some reason they are coming more into the Gulf now than they used to a few decades ago. So what we do here is we want to make sure we stock up on batteries. Rechargeable variety is great, and then your recharge for your batteries, you want to make sure that you have some kind of a solar output or input for it, so it's charging those with the sun after the storm. But something else we look at is we look at the old style lanterns with the wicks and things like that. You can look at these new style Coleman lanterns and stuff with the compressed fuel and all that kind of stuff. But it's up to you on how you want to stock that back up. But I would make sure that you have at least a week's supply of food. I personally try to keep more than that around, but you want at least a week's supply of food. Now, if you're wondering, so what happens if your house gets wiped out by a hurricane, all your stocks are just gone? That's why you don't store it all in one location. If you have several outbuildings, try to store it in different buildings. If you can, try to store it at different locations. Even if you're having to go to, say, a storage facility or something like that and get something that's climate controlled, you could potentially try that. But understand, you're going to lose preps as events happen, unfortunately. Now you might be able to go and recover some of those. If you bury them in the ground during storms with the heavy rains and stuff, you do run a potential that those could actually become buoyant and pop up out of the ground if they're not deep enough. So those are some different things you need to look at. But you definitely want to make sure you have some water filtration, because when it hit here last time, city water was off for quite a long while. A lot of the wells were damaged because of the influx of just the groundwater washing into wells and stuff, contaminating wells. And the best way to actually decontaminate your well after a situation like that, because understand, most of your houses in your rural areas out here, they have septic tanks. And they are above ground septic tanks. They're buried, but they sit above the ground, the drain fields and stuff. Just a little layer of dirt on it. So that's something you got to worry about, is that contaminant getting into your well. Most people don't realize you can actually take a few gallons of bleach and dump down in a well, and then you want to let that sit for at least 72 hours. All right, don't just turn around and start drinking. You want to leave it set for 72 hours, and then you want to start cycling that water out. So you're getting ready to bleach, and that bleach kills a lot of those diseases and stuff. But it's going to depend on how deep your well is. If you have a very deep well, maybe it didn't get contaminated. If you're using shallow wells like some folks do here, I wouldn't risk it. That's just me personally, guys. And you would definitely want to make sure that you're testing that stuff for nematodes and things like that could potentially be in your water source, or you can get very sick from that type of a situation. So one of the things we noticed out here is people were going down to lakes, Deer Point Lake and different areas like that, and taking their baths in those areas as well. But what kind of concerned me about that is, one, you have a lot of gators, you have a lot of snakes, but two, they have these what do you call them, like honey pot, little portable toilet things that they set up out in these parks, and they were blowed over into the area where people were actually bathing. So it's kind of gross to think about. But now what we do is we have a 90-gallon wash tank that is hooked up to showers. So we have 90 gallons of shower water. Then we always try to keep 80, 90 gallons of actual drinking potable water available. So when you're coming into these hurricane seasons, be watching your radars and stuff. And when you see one that's potentially coming in your area, you want to make sure that you stock all your water up. Now, if the storm comes through, doesn't do any damage to you, then use that water the best way that you can, so you are ready to refill that with the next storm. You don't want to have water just sitting around all the time. I've seen some people stocking up early in the year, and when it comes time for them to use that water because the well's down or a storm has come through or something like that, that water, there is a shelf life on water, especially if you're pulling from a well. You're going to have algae contents and things like that in it. So you want to make sure that you're treating that water when you store it long term. And the best way to do that is to use a chlorine solution. And you can look online and find what the drop ratio of chlorine to water supply is for long-term storage. They have all that, and it's going to depend on the type of a bleach solution that you're using, guys. So make sure you don't use too much, and make sure you follow the directions of what's actually for that particular bleach that you're using, because all of it has different ppm. So those are just some safety tips for you. But right now, you need to be getting your food. I would be storing, if you're in an area where you're facing water shortages, you've faced them before because of no rain, you're facing drought situations, be stocking water up the best way you can. Me personally, I'd be making plans to get out of that area because it's only going to get worse. If you look back at those articles, guys, it is going to be phenomenally worse. And that's one of the things that they're saying. You could call it climate change and stuff like that. Now, is the climate changing? Sure. Is it because of the reasons that they say? No, I believe that the climate is changing. It is getting back to a state of what it was pre-flood. And that's just kind of where we're at in the world, I believe. So it just depends on what your view is. But the fact is, there is a real problem there. So you need to be focusing on solutions for your problem rather than sitting around talking about what you can't do. Figure out what it is that you can do to better your situation. Because it comes down to this. If you can't do anything or you're not going to do anything, you're not going to survive. That's what it comes down to. I know that's very hard to say that, but the fact is, these types of events, when they happen in the world, you're talking about worldwide droughts, sorry, getting tongue-tied there. You're talking about famine events and just all kinds of just insane inflation going on right now. Empty shelves at the store. When you're looking at stuff like that and things like that have happened in the past, not everybody survives, unfortunately, and it's only those who are prepared and ready to, face those type of complications that actually make it out. But not even all of those people make it through, guys. So y'all have a great day. Be ready, be vigilant, be watching what happens around us in our country and around the world, because things are really starting to heat up. Have a wonderful day.